I've been taking a whole bunch of business development or sales calls for our company. A lot of people that have been talking about it feels interesting or feels weird to use technology to create a situation with a client or a customer or friend that is personal. But what I would argue is all you're doing is changing the moment where...
When I try and steal from a restaurant and they fall flat, what I like to do is I'll take off my wife's wedding ring and I'll get down on one knee and propose to her. It's the quickest way to get a bottle of champagne to the table. ChatGPT, none of that feels automated. You go back and forth and pretty soon you start to think you're talking to a human. I don't know if you ever thanked ChatGPT.
I do it all the time, and
right?
I say please.
Right, say please and you say thank you and you're like, wait, why am I doing that? It's working. It's like, it doesn't feel automated at all. Welcome back to another episode of Who Cares? I'm Jay O'Brien, and this is Hefe J. Cole.
I'm Jeff. Good to meet you.
For anyone watching the video, which, let's face it, probably nobody's watching this video, you should at least justify the way you look, because you don't look good. You look like you've been up all night with kids, but you've actually been surfing, which is a cool thing to say, so you should probably leave.
Is it really that bad?
It's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
I went surfing this morning for the first time this year. I've been trying to go for the last little while, and finally got in the water this morning, was there for an hour. I was just saying every time I go out, there's like a 2 or 3 minute period where I honestly think I'm going to die.
Why? Why do you feel like you're going to die? Is it a shark?
No, I know how scared you are of sharks. You want to talk about it?
Not really. Just answer the question.
Because no matter how good a shape you are in, of just like regular, you can lift weights, you can do whatever. Surfing, paddling it's a whole different animal. Like I get so exhausted. I honestly feel like I'm either going to pass out and then just drown. Well, I started wearing this watch for safety reasons because the wife made me while I surf.
It's a Breitling.
It's great if you're gardening. So I looked down at this at one point when I honestly thought I was going to pass out, and my heart rate said it was at 174. Based on my age and what I know about heart rates, I don't even think I'm supposed to be able to get to 174. I've seen like 167, 168 when I have taken Orange Theory or things like that. 74? 174?
That's dangerous. Well, did you rip the barrels at all?
I actually did get covered once, but it was just a closeout.
Did you get pitted?
It was in the green room. No, it was, it keeps doing this. It keeps saying it's going to be like 2 to 3 feet. So I'm like, for anybody that gives a shit, nobody does. I surfed a good amount when I was young, and I've taken a really, really long time and not done it. I love doing things that I suck at. We could talk about this at some point. I really like doing things that are very, very hard that I'm not good at, and just like trying to get through that part where you can get like serviceable at whatever it is. I just think it's important to constantly do things like that. So this is what I've been doing for the last few months. Surfing is one of the things. And so I thought I was the guy that was like, oh, dude, look, it's going to be 5 to 7 feet. It's going to be 4 to 6 feet, whatever. Like, let's charge. And I'd get out there and be like, I'm not prepared. I'm not ready for this. This is not what I should be doing.
Big.
Yeah. So then I would be like, well, let's do 3 to 5. I honestly think that my sweet spot right now is like 2 to 3. But the last 3 times that I've done it, I go out and it says it's going to be 2 to 3. And like it was today, I'm like, this is not 2 to 3. And I got back out and it's like 4 to 6. Like Surfline amended itself. So
maybe we'll make some waves in your bathtub for you.
I could take the little ones. I surf small waves.
What do we have today? What's on the agenda?
I've been taking a whole bunch of business development or sales calls for our company. A lot of people that have been talking about, like, what they're sort of saying is they intend every part of their business and being and culture is to be relational with the people that they work with, but they've found themselves, it's almost like they're depressed. They're like, wow, we've really backslid. Like we've fallen into being transactional, just kind of like getting on autopilot. So I thought we might talk about some of the ways, even the most, emotionally driven companies can kind of backslide and become a little bit just transactional. And what's interesting is like we are proponents, obviously, of automation and processes to do this. So there's kind of a yin and yang there between like setting processes that is by nature not natural, but to make sure that you're keeping up with this level of service to people.
What's not natural? You mean just leveraging technology for reminders and things like that?
Like we use the analogy of like, if something happens to a friend, they lose a loved one or they have something happen and you say, wow, that really stinks. You'd maybe do something for them. A year from now, you might say, I would really like to remember that this is the anniversary of that. And so what you do, or what I do, is I'll put it in my phone and I'll set myself a reminder. But a lot of people that we talk to, and I don't know why, I do understand it, but they'll say like, if you're using a crutch or if you're using a some sort of a device or some sort of technology, whatever, to help yourself be that kind of person, I think that's great. I think you have to. It's just the reality of the world in which we live. But people say that it's kind of like, well, you didn't just like remember to do that. You intentionally reminded yourself.
I couldn't disagree with that idea anymore. Okay, so my wife, she will not set reminders on her phone because she's like, I'll just remember. I'm like, this is just the stupidest thing ever for a lot of reasons. One is you're just clouding your brain with more things, so you're going to be more stressed. Like you're just opening yourselves up to forget about it, and even if you don't forget about it, you're just creating more stress in your life. Just get it on a piece of paper, get it on a reminder, like just get it out of your system, and now it's done. Like if you have a system you can rely upon, then you never, ever, ever have to worry about this. So all the time, things are slipping through the cracks. Sure. And every single time, like, just set a reminder. I set a reminder on my phone, probably 3 a day.
Same.
Like, and it works out flawlessly for me. So going back to what you're saying about setting a reminder for the anniversary of like a loved one's passing or whatever it is, I actually think that's incredibly thoughtful to even be that intentional to say like, I'm going to schedule this, like, I mean, I can't connect the dots on that. That sounds like a blind thought with, doesn't.
A lot of people will say that. They'll say like, it feels interesting or feels weird to use technology to create a situation with a client or customer or friend that is personal because you've done something. But what I would argue is all you're doing is changing the moment where the real thoughtfulness happened. The thoughtfulness was a year ago when you set the reminder because it's the
exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's just happening at different times.
100%.
Wow. So that's just plain wrong. Go ahead and load up the comments with anyone who disagrees with that. But there's really no opinions to be had there. That's just incorrect. What's next?
Well, so I think a lot of people are backsliding, right? They find themselves backsliding. So like if we talk about some of the common things that we hear people saying or that companies fall into that are making their, interactions with businesses, with customers, whatever feel. So like, for example, if you find yourself, sending emails that are like just checking in, and that's the thing that you're constantly doing, that doesn't feel personal to anybody that you're talking with, right? Like a just checking in email.
No, absolutely not. That's just garbage.
100%. So these are the things that like you'll notice that you're doing the just checking in, or if you're on calls with somebody, like a lot of these people, they're on regular calls. You got an existing client or customer, you're talking to them. Some of these things are just a check in, but that's why what we would say is like it's all the more important that you then go out of your way to talk about something personal. I will talk about it for many more minutes than you will.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't know if I would get to minutes plural.
This is we'll have to pull back the curtain on this. Every phone call that we take with whoever it is, I will find myself 3, 4, 5 minutes in. We haven't talked about anything, honestly, but it's because I honestly care to know what the hell's going on with the person's life, whether I know them or I don't. Like if I see a picture behind them in a Zoom and they got little kids, I'm like, oh, dude, I got little kids. How old are yours? And Jay's on the thing being like, oh my God, what are we talking?
Jeff's at Trader Joe's and the line is just stacking up as he's learning everything about the cashier. Like that's the difference. And I'm an Instacart guy. So we're polar opposites.
Yeah.
Maximum efficiency.
Not only your Instagram guy, you just said just like leave it on the doorstep. Please don't ring the doorbell.
Yeah, definitely don't ring the doorbell.
What do they just send you a text? How do you know it's there?
My phone number's not hooked up to it. So I don't know who they're texting. Where were you going with this? Okay, so you're talking about being on the call with someone, intro, talking about personal stuff, first 5 minutes.
So, for example, anybody that has a new client customer, the first several times you're on a call with them and you're getting to know them, I would hope that you're finding out about them. Meaning, like, I would hope that you find out, let's say that I'm your financial advisor, I'm a real estate agent, I work with you, whatever. In the first, like, however many calls, I'd hope I learned that you're married. You've been married for a couple of years.
Yeah. I don't disagree with any of that. But you keep talking about backsliding. It sounds like a cool skateboard move, and I want to know what it is.
Here's exactly what it is. Now, that's the first, like, 2 months, let's say, of our relationship working together. I've found out about you personally. Maybe I took you to dinner. Maybe I did a lunch. I did all that stuff that feels very personal and not transactional. A year down the line, most people find themselves no longer asking, hey, how's Ashley? hey, what's going on with you guys getting this house or whatever it is,
Sure.
or doing so.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what happens. That when people like assess their businesses and assess the relationships that they have with the people that they work with, you got to say, am I still doing those things? When was the last time you were on a call with a customer or a client or someone you work with and asked those questions and literally inquired about their life that has nothing to do with the business that you do? Because if everything is just about the business you do, they could be working with anybody.
You're saying for you, maybe the way you receive love as a client, okay, that's really what it is less transactional. Ask me more about my kid.
I don't think it's anything. It's not about how I do it. I think.
No, but I'm asking you. Like, let's say it is your financial advisor. Let's like what? Forget like the theory of you shouldn't be so transactional. You should be more relationship. Like, what do you respond well to, and why?
That's interesting because I know you're going to say you just want to get to the point with whatever it is. If let's say I have two people that I'm working with as financial advisors, which at one point this was true. One of them just does the business. We get on a call, he calls, he's literally talking about this investment, that investment, what do you want to do here, what do you want to do there? And the other one is constantly asking about my wife and kids and literally like, how is surfing? I know you took that up. And actually one of them got me something for surfing when he found out that I was like getting into it, right? The former, I don't work with anymore.
And you think that's related?
And the former was actually making me a better return on my investments.
Wow.
So I mean, maybe that's stupid, but like I do think that if you want to lock in that loyalty, I would feel terrible making a move from the one that cares about me, that I feel actually is looking out for me because he actually sees me as a person and a friend and not just a number.
So this is interesting. Objectively, you're performing worse with the more thoughtful person, but you continue to work with them because you trust them, probably.
And you know how much I care about money and saving and making.
Yeah, and not spending.
And that's
yeah, I know. That's interesting. And no, so going back to what I respond well to, I wouldn't say it's just about getting to the point. I think that for me, I can quickly identify what's surface level, what's not. And so if it's a surface level relationship, a business relationship, I don't need to do all the niceties because that is kind of just wasting my time. It doesn't feel like we just don't have that genuine connection or whatever. So let's just not even pretend, you know?
But would you say, what if that person had started out on the right foot in that regard?
You know, you can tell when someone has a genuine interest in your life or not. Like, okay, let me tell you this. I got a call Tuesday night at like 10 p.m. You and I were at dinner and I left. I got a phone call from our good buddy, Mr. Fargo.
Oh.
He's checking in on the fires and all the stuff, like seeing how we're doing, what's going on, all the stuff. And we start talking about, you know, life, everything. My dad and me going to Vegas this weekend to like take care of things or whatever. He said something that I thought was just very nice, thoughtful, and like probably the most genuine way I've heard someone frame this up. But you know when something happens in your life, you lose a loved one or whatever, and like people go, hey, we're here for anything you need. That's just kind of like the filler space, like
sort of empty.
Just what you say. Like, it's nice, but like I don't really know what that means. You probably don't know what that means. Am I supposed to ask you to like run an errand for me? I don't really know what I need from you. Mm-hmm. What he said was anything you need here, whether it's like filing paperwork or moving death certificates or grabbing things from your dad's house. He said, please let me be your first phone call. And I just had never heard it framed that way before. I was like, that is so thoughtful. He's like, he's not offering it up. He's actually asking to be the first one called to be able to help. And
saying, let me is almost like it's an honor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just hit me totally differently. So someone like that, like I feel a genuine relationship with, for sure.
I don't know if this takes it down a weird line, but he lost a parent in the last couple of years. So I think he's able to, it's just 100% empathy. He knows what that feels like. It's still like new and fresh. And so he's going to be able to relate to that. But to actually be able to figure out the best way to articulate it and know what would help you the most is pretty awesome. It's kind of a gift.
Yeah. Totally. So, anyway, getting back on track with the backsliding and the kickflips, like you're basically saying when you're on these biz dev calls, people are admitting to, I'm just not that great with personal relationships. I'm not good with that touch. I keep everything like business focused. Maybe it's not even phone calls, it's emails that, it's just transactional.
They're saying, I care about it, right? They're saying, I care about being personal with these people. I believe and I know that this is what's going to future proof my business. I intend to do that. I just lose my way, right? It's because we've talked about this a million times. It's because the operational part of what you're actually doing is what you think is your job. And it is your job. It's what everybody else that you'd be compared to. The first step, you have to do your job. You have to be good at your job. You have to make, although I guess the argument for the financial advisor thing I was just saying is your job is to make me more money, right? But
I guess that's more of a long-term, like less finite type of judgment though.
It's not 1 year, 1 quarter or whatever. Yeah. But they'd say that they find themselves, wow, I've really lost. How many times do people say to us, oh my gosh, I can't, is it weird if I start taking care of somebody because I honestly I've been really bad at this. I let this go. I was so good in the beginning. I just haven't talked to him in 2 years or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, you're further proving the point you made earlier of setting the reminder to reach out in a year today, right?
100%.
Like, so, okay. So take it a step further. I don't want this to be a Client Giant commercial, but like what we believe in and what we do is automating thoughtfulness, which I could understand that position from someone saying, ooh, that feels manufactured. That feels like manipulative or like less authentic, like because you're saying, oh, well, all of these like engagements, like maybe it's AI that's writing this email to you, Jeff, and saying, hey, from your financial advisor, it's like, hey, you've been surfing for 3 months now. How's it going, buddy? And you learn that he actually didn't even write that email. I can understand the perspective of, ooh, that feels like inauthentic and doesn't feel real. But I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I agree.
I actually think it's the same thing as the automated birthday reminder or whatever. It's like that person probably does have a genuine interest in wanting to know what all 200 people that he takes care of are doing. How was their holiday season? How, this, that, whatever, what's going on in their life. But the reality is there's no time for it. Everyone's caught up in their day-to-day. I mean, just running their own business anyway. So it's either have a system that triggers it, and it'd be great if it felt like you wrote it. Sure. But I think you writing it is actually, to your point, not the important part. The important part is that you triggered something to write it because you actually want to learn. And if you don't do that and you don't do the manual thing, then you do nothing and you start backsliding down these half pipes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You did the work. You put in the energy, you made the investment, whatever it is, at whatever point, to ensure that all of the people you take care of or work with feel a certain way and that you are actually doing that. It's almost like not doing that and just like doing it the way that you're saying that, Ash, that your wife does it, is almost like if the system doesn't work, it's less caring by far. Because the result is nobody feels anything and nothing gets done. What you intended to do doesn't get done.
Right. It's just a bunch of people wishing they would have done something.
100%.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like Mr. Stat person. I love to like be able to prove different things. I pull different things to see on this, like what. So I pulled a study from Deloitte saying that 59% of customers feel that companies have lost touch with the human element of customer experience. 60% of companies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, that's wild. I think it's higher. From my personal experience of working with companies as a consumer, I think it's higher.
Yeah, I think it's definitely higher. I think that because of where we are generationally, like you've got still the tail end of boomers and folks who are still doing business the old-fashioned way. So maybe that's why it's only 59%. But I think about this often because while technology is great and it's allowed all these things, like it's also like such a headache because what it's done, at least for the last 20 years, a little bit longer, but pretty much the last 20 years has been it's set an expectation and an entitlement for every person out there to get things faster. So like, you text them, you're like, why haven't they texted me back? Or like whatever, you want it right now because it can get done right now.
Yeah.
And because it can get done so fast, you expect it to get done so fast. And that piece of it erodes, I think, the human connection if it's not done right. Because, rewind to like the 70s or 80s, it's like if we're doing business, I'm going to call you. That's the only way.
Yeah.
I have to call you.
Yep.
And there's going to be small talk and so like that naturally feels more personable. But now it's like that doesn't have to get done. And instead of making 20 calls a day, I can send out 1,000 emails a day and so on and so forth. And so it erodes that personal relationship. I 100% understand that.
Yeah. And it just becomes less and less effective. So like we talked about a couple of like service businesses, but I want to like, can you think of other things, a couple of other things that I thought about where this happens all the time, where like you can tell that a company or industry, like companies within industries are trying to be personal, like they're making an attempt, but then they've clearly backslid. So like a good example that you've mentioned before is when like you'll go to a hotel, or you'll make a reservation at a hotel or a restaurant, or it's actually happened at a kid's dentist recently. They'll ask you, are you celebrating something specific? It's like specific, right? Yeah. Something special, or like they'll ask you interesting questions, the dentist situation, asking you, and you're like, yes, it's my, wife's birthday, or or the thing with the kids, like my kids love Moana or whatever the heck it is. And you or I don't know whether normal, like the average person thinks this. So tell us in comments. I'm thinking this is awesome. They're going to do something with this. Like your expectation is they're going to do something with this, especially at a hotel or a restaurant. And then when they do absolutely nothing with it, it's like a massive letdown because you built up your expectation.
Yeah.
But when you dissect this, clearly at some point, somebody in the customer experience realm at this business was like, we're going to, they didn't like set this process up to ask for it and then completely fall flat.
Right. Of course.
That was their intention.
Yeah. So basically, like anytime I go to a restaurant and I'll put like, yes, it's a special occasion because I want a free dessert. Now, if they,
by the way, when we were at dinner that he was talking about, on Monday, we ran into a family that I've known for a really long time, and they're celebrating. It was like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was her birthday. And they came over to us afterwards, and the son is like, I do this to my mom every time we go to dinner. Not her birthday. It's in October.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I try and steal from a restaurant,
sure,
and they fall flat, what I like to do is I'll take off my wife's wedding ring and I'll get down on one knee and propose to her in the restaurant.
You never know this.
And it's the quickest way to get a bottle of champagne to the table. Okay, I digress, and I don't eat dessert.
Think of other things. So like another thing that I think of is like, I mean, I know you don't participate in social media, but this happens all the time. You'll see in social media where brands like, you'll see somebody make a comment that's like glowing, like a glowing review of their time at this thing, or a really, tough review. And then like there's like a canned response from the company that's like, thanks so much for your feedback.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's no way they set out to do that. Like their intent, So it's like different things like that. Can you think of anything else?
Wait, so what's the question? Is it
where you can tell that a company did something? Actually, the restaurant's a better example where you can tell that a company had good intentions to be. This is all about being like personal with your customers. This is all about being like emotionally driven, right? Driving emotion with whatever you're doing. You could tell that they're trying, but then at some point, clearly the train fell off the tracks or wheels fell off.
I see. They ask if there's a special occasion, or they ask if you have a preference, and then they don't like abide by that.
Yeah,
whatever.
Like why ask that? Because it's worse. It's the same thing. It's like the whole analogy with like saying I'm gonna telling you that I'm gonna send pizza and beer or whatever, and then it's like shitty pizza and beer. It's like you set me up to have yourself fail.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if you're gonna have an intake form, you better use that in some way, shape, or form. And it doesn't even have to be like with tangible anything. It could just be follow-up questions. It could be like, I mean, I don't know if you ever stayed at a Hard Rock hotel. But
I have. It's been a long time. I stayed in one room with like 8 dudes.
Okay, well, that's between you and God. But when you check in there, like at least they used to ask you like what kind of music you listen to. I thought it was a really random question because I'd never stayed there before. And then when I got to the room, that music was playing.
It's great.
So it's like, oh, that's
Ritz-Carlton does something similar, right?
I don't know. I don't stay at Ritz-Carlton. I stay at Excalibur.
Oh, well, yeah, we did stay at Excalibur. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there's countless examples there. I can't think of anything else outside of the restaurant hospitality space. I definitely don't get asked questions like that at all by any other professional, financial advisor, accountant, anything like that.
I mean, that's a whole thing in itself. We talk about this all the time. Like, well, hospitality industry, whenever you think of a great experience, you think of hospitality. Like, I don't even know if other industries are doing that.
No, definitely not. I mean, that's a critical component for sure. It's like, 10, 15 years ago, Gary Vee is like, every single company out there, no matter what you do, is a media company. He's like,
Yep.
you're a media company first, then you're this. Like, agreed. Take it a step further. Like, you also need a hospitality component to your brand, no matter what you do. Like, you need some sort of element that's like showing care and showing like genuine connection. That's not just the thing.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're going to be commoditized overnight if you're not already, and you really are you're indefensible. So I think take it a step further. Like right now, we just saw this devastating tragedy with the fires in LA. Insurance companies are bombarded, right? Like I can't even imagine the nightmare of navigating that with an insurance company right now. And I know firsthand, like dealing with high fire zones and an insurance company I work with, sometimes they'll take weeks to get back to me and I have to follow up like 6-7 times.
And that's for something simple.
Yeah, that's when a fire isn't actually happening, because they're so overwhelmed. So if we actually said, and now I'm just talking about AI, but like if you actually embraced that and leveraged it, and these insurance companies right now were reaching out to people to see how they're doing, if they were affected, like, is there anything you can help with? Even if that's a bot going back and forth, you're actually getting shit done. Like you're actually letting someone know you're there for them. There are responses that will make sense for whatever that comes back and forth, that someone will feel heard and they'll actually be making progress on whatever they need, even if it ends up with, okay, we will call you on such and such a date. Like at least there's context versus right now. It's like, well, no one's answering their phone and no one's responding to email because they're slammed. It's like, okay, well that doesn't feel good. So maybe use something automated to make it feel better and for it to actually be effective,
That's an interesting thing that I wonder whether anybody's doing research on, like being able to at least give information to like a bot, right? So that you do feel like you're heard, even though I think at the current state of AI bots, you would know that it was automated.
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you have every call recorded, logged, all of this is being stored, like there's enough patterns there in the data to know how to respond to certain situations that you're just saying, be a human and take all this data and respond back to this person. I mean, it's the same thing as ChatGPT. None of that feels automated. You go back and forth and pretty soon you start to think you're talking to a human. I don't know if you ever thanked ChatGPT.
I do it all the time and I say, please.
Right. You say please and you say thank you. And you're like, wait, why am I doing that? It's working. It's like, doesn't feel automated at all,
I do that. I feel like, well, we probably can't even post this. Do you genderize ChatGPT? I was just going to say, like, I thank her all the time.
I mean, maybe that's because, like, this all started with Siri. And that,
and Alexa.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's give some people advice, like things that they can do in their businesses if they find themselves in the same situation, like where they are, feeling like, yeah, that's not my intention, but I do know that I've gotten to the point where my calls are pretty much like just straight get to the business and discussing the details, and my emails are probably starting to feel, all the same, or like just a check-in, or like I'm really not.
Is the bottleneck that there's no time to do the thing, or that they don't remember to do the thing?
I honestly don't know. I don't think I haven't personally had anybody like admit what their fault was. They just say, I know that at some point I lost my way in like the intention to have an emotional connection with the people that I work with.
Okay, so then there's
by the way, same thing with B2B. Like a lot of the things that we're saying is like B2C, but like in B2B, you're working with a real human inside of another company, whoever the counterpart is at another company that you're working with. Like, I actually think that there's more opportunity to kind of shoot the shit with that person and feel personal. Just a lot of times because there's like not a cover your ass, but like if the business is vital to your organization, you probably would take the time to put more effort into it. Maybe that's wrong, but like all of these relationships, they'll get off track with just like, let's just go through, what does my company owe you? What does your company owe me? Or accounts receivable, accounts payable, whatever the hell it is. It's like so transactional.
If the problem is remembering, then schedule it. So just like you said, like remembering someone's loved one passed away, and you have to schedule it. And so whether you're scheduling yourself to do it or scheduling a system to do it, it has to be scheduled. It's like, everyone coming up with New Year's resolutions and nothing's actually on the calendar or plan. It's like, okay, well, it's not a plan if it's not on the calendar. So schedule it. if it's a time constraint, like for me, I'm not going to call people and like do the two-way conversation thing because it's not only is it a waste of my time, it's a waste of their time in almost every situation.
Some people just love the phone call though.
Yeah, but it actually impedes on productivity for them and for me. So I'm mindful of that, and what I personally favor, here's the tip, here's the advice. Use a voice memo. I love a voice memo. Like you get the tone of voice, you understand the vocal inflections, you understand exactly the sentiment of what the message is. Like it makes perfect sense, but it's unilateral. It's just going one way. You can even hit it with a bunch of questions and asking all these follow-ups, but that person could be busy and not look at it for 4 hours and then listen to it on their drive home and respond. And now you're having this human interaction with somebody, but it's not dependent upon, hey, are our calendars free at the exact same time?
Yep.
No. So the conversation never happens.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take what you just said one step backwards, because the argument would be once people have backslid, kick flipped,
I was hoping for that.
Sure, into doing business in this way, odds are they would never know that their customer or client or whatever had lost a loved one, because they're not asking those questions. All their communication is straight up about what we do work with. So the challenge that I would kind of ask people to figure out, if you don't know, I think people that are going to listen to this will know, if they're honest with themselves, whether they are now conducting business in that way or not. But if you ask yourself, when was the last time I asked a personal question, open-ended personal question of somebody I'm doing business with? And it's not shooting the shit. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes, but it's starting a call with, or at the end of a call, if you have a couple extra minutes, or not even a call that just has nothing to do with business, and ask that question. Some questions to find out what's going on in their lives. If that's not a regular practice, you have a problem. So when you're saying set a process for yourself, like the same way you set a reminder for a year later, I would say maybe in your process is on every single call with every single person I work with, I'm going to ask at least 2 questions that have nothing to do with the business that we're going to conduct and that are open-ended. Like if you wanted to systematize it even further, depends on the relationships that you have with people. But like, what if in the beginning, I'm gonna screw the evergreen, but like it's the beginning of the year right now. What if you did a thing where and they don't have to respond, but where you ask everybody, hey, I'd be curious to hear if you have any New Year's resolutions or what you really want to work on this year, personally, professionally, whatever. I would feel that would hit me so well if somebody asked me that, just because I love New Year's stuff and like, what am I gonna do with this year? But I think setting these things up with the personal communication in mind, that kind of process is what everybody needs to do.
Okay, so you've done the restaurant thing of saying, is there a special occasion? Now what? What are you going to do with that information?
I don't know that in every case you have to do something with that. Like so if I was pushed to do that, if I started and if I did that next year, which maybe we should do that, people that we work with, it'd be kind of cool. Let's shoot out New Year's resolution things 2026.
I already do that. You don't do that?
You don't do that. If you did that, what would be actually really cool, this would wow people, right? And it would be really cool, is if every 3 months you said, hey, I paid attention when you told me your New Year's resolution. If you want, I'd love an update. How's this going? That would absolutely knock somebody's socks off, right? But if it's general questions about like, if I was your financial advisor or we did business together and whatever, and I didn't know, and I asked like, how's your wife? How's this? How's Big Bear or whatever, right? Sure, I could go and get you something for Big Bear. I could do a gift. I could do a whatever. But I don't even think that you have to do that. I think I now know these are the things that Jay cares about.
Yeah.
And then in the next call, when I talk to you in 3 months, instead of just checking in with you and telling you the updates on your portfolio or giving you whatever, I would ask, hey, have you been up to Big Bear?
Yeah.
Or, Ash still doing okay with, you know what I mean? Like, it's there's not like a million different talking points and passions that every one of your customers or clients or people you work with have. So you're just keeping a tally on those things and knowing the things they care about to check in that have nothing to do with business.
Yeah. So in terms of like the takeaway, what someone could do would be, hopefully you're using a CRM of some kind.
For sure.
You're on the call, you're just like basics 101, like you're going to schedule your next call, or at least on your side, right? Follow up in 3 months, right then and there, ask about Big Bear, ask about surfing, whatever. Like that's at least accomplishing the scheduling part.
Yep.
Granted, we're not automating the doing yet, but I think we'll get there.
So I summed, when I was thinking about what we were talking about today, I summed up one way that for myself, I'm going to think about this is, how do I balance and accomplish efficiency and empathy? And if that one line is just in business people's head, you'll go in every call with that. What's that going to be? Like, efficiency is setting up these processes. Anything that you're going to do twice, set up a process for. Anything you're going to do regularly, set up automation for. We say that all the time. But within that, make those things for empathy, to show that you're caring about the other person. Set those processes.
Yep. Love it.
I like this conversation.
That's great. I'm glad you liked it.
Okay, what do you got for final thoughts or takeaways, or what do you want people to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to unpack. I think at the end of the day, ask yourself the question, what are you doing that competitors are not doing in your space? Meaning, I don't mean, oh, well, our product's this much better. Like, I mean, not like that. I mean, specifically for your relationships with your people. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And is that illustrating empathy? Is that building a personal connection? Or is it just focused on the business transactional piece of it? Like, asking the question first, what are you doing?
I'd say try not to, like, do for this week or whatever. Don't try to change anything immediately. To be honest with yourself, like, audit the calls that you'd have this week, the communication that you have with people this week, and be honest with yourself. Did you naturally do something relational, personal? Ask them questions that have nothing to do with the business that you do. And then a week from now, what's your scorecard? Right? And that's how you know you got to make a change.
Yeah. I like it.
Sweet. We'll see you next week when we talk about God knows what.
Who cares?
Who cares?